Welcome everyone to Business for Builders. My name's Max, and today we're going to be chatting with my esteemed business partner who takes control and takes care of business down under. He oversees operations in Australia and New Zealand, and it's great to have him on the show. Lee, welcome to Business for Builders. This is the first time that we've had you on the show, and I'm really looking forward to having the conversation with you about mentoring. Welcome.
Thank you for the welcome, and I'm excited. I love new and exciting ventures, and this is one of those. There's nothing like breaking out into new territory, doing something no one's done before, so I'm pumped.
So when people ask you, hey, Lee, when was the last time you did something for the first time? You'll be able to tell them just today.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that, really.
When was the last time you did something for the first time? Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but I guess as we get older, we should be doing more new things, shouldn't we?
I think it's, I guess it keeps you alive, doesn't it? It keeps you sort of on the cutting edge.
Yes. Well, we tend to probably not take as many risks. We tend to get comfortable. So doing those new things does keep us alive and keeps us learning, I think.
Keeps us flexible.
Oh, I'm super flexible.
Sure you are. Well, I guess what you and I do is we have this brand, and of course you've been with Smith & Sons from day one. And my history was a couple of years after Smithies got going around 2010. I got involved as a builder and as a franchisee. And so, obviously fast forward to today, you're in position there of leadership. I'm sort of doing the same here, but I'm, enjoying working closely with yourself. And, obviously we launched the brand here in Canada a couple of years back, and some new things on the horizon that are super exciting as it relates to taking the brand to the US, which is cool. And so, we often, on Business for Builders, we talk a lot about the different components or the high performance pillars that we've called, mindset, management, marketing, mentoring, and business mastery. And they're a fairly macro term, Lee. There's some fairly broad, we talked to Sam just recently about marketing, and, he said there was so much more stuff. Even after a 30-minute podcast, there was so much more stuff that he had to talk about. So, which is good. Yeah. It's encouraging. And we want to bring that to our audience just to really give value without any expectation. Obviously, we're in the business of reaching out to general contractors and, showing them perhaps a better way of doing business in the building game. And it's, the fact that you've got 10 years of Smith & Sons or more, 11 years now going on 12. Obviously, having that experience and that depth and the amount of players that we have, general contractors and builders that we have in the business, is certainly a strong testament to, the effectiveness. And so the one that we're going to chat about is mentoring. And I think, I'd love to get your point of view based on your experience, what you've seen maybe prior to Smith & Sons, but certainly during your years, your tenure, in the Smith & Sons, sort of ecosystem as it relates to mentoring. So I think, what essentially what we're talking about is moving from, and this is what happens when our general contractors join with us. They have that mindset change where they realize that moving from me to we is an important part of how to grow a business, because you can't do it all on your own. And then realizing that all of us can't be as smart. One of us can't be as smart as all of us. So there is definitely, and I see that personally. I was never a big fan of partnerships because of my upbringing in the building game. But today, joining with you guys with Smith & Sons, in a corporate setting, there's no way that I could do this by myself. So I actually value at a high level having obviously the partnership for starters, but certainly, the mentoring, because you've been doing this a little longer than I have. And so there's a lot of depth there. So what, if I, with business mastery, based on what you've seen, give us a little bit of insight from, where you sit and what you see on a day-to-day basis as it relates to general contractors and builders, and the mentoring part of their growth or the development phase, their franchisee growth pathway even.
Yeah, definitely. I guess, talking about those aspects of the business, one thing I love, forgive me if I start preaching about Smith & Sons, because it's...
No, that's all right.
bloody awesome. But what I love about the whole team network and culture we've got in the business is that, and, I was just thinking about this the other day, is how, when a general contractor or a builder, whatever term we want to use,
Yeah.
Joins Smith and Sons, it's like you're now in this group where, as your level as an individual lifts, then the level of the whole group lifts.
Right.
And on the flip side to that, as the level of the whole group lifts, you as a contractor or a builder are also involved in that. So like they say, a rising tide lifts all ships. And I think what this actually does, for a general contractor or a builder, you imagine if you're slowly getting better by yourself. You're doing all the right stuff and you're starting to build a bit of a business. What I see is, so that's the first quotient, is you're helping lift yourself.
Yeah.
But, as a part of a group like Smith and Sons, is that also you're getting that exponential lift from everyone else lifting as well, if that makes sense. So you're really 2xing or 5xing your growth in your business. And some of that, I think, does almost come down to, it's almost a group mentorship.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
I guess, when we look at the word mentor, it's almost, we've got to, and again, this is probably a longer conversation than today, but you're unpacking what really does mentorship mean. Like, when you talk about mentorship, people might think of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker, he's his mentor. Or you might think of someone looking up to an influencer, like, whoever they want to look up to. So, what does mentorship really mean to someone on a personal level? Because in my experience, I often find as human beings is that we really don't learn as much as we would think to.
Yeah.
We often don't learn from other people's experiences.
Yeah.
We read it in a book, or we have someone say to us, look, I don't think that's the best way to do it. But a lot of us, hey, me included, sometimes we think, well, my ego, and I think, well, maybe I should do this way. And we learn the lesson from experience instead of actually learning it from a mentor or someone who we look up to. And, maybe some people don't do that, but I know I've been guilty of that. So, really, what does that mentorship role look like? Is it, I can get on the phone to them for 20 minutes, or I can meet with them for an hour? And I think that's the important thing, is around the whole mentorship program, is that a mentor to you, Maxie, may look somewhat different to what I classify as a mentor. So I do, though, think it's critically important that, in a way, somehow we connect with someone who is where we want to be.
I agree. That's where I was going about to go. I just don't think, I often say that a leader can't lead somebody somewhere they haven't already been.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
So, at this point, it's sort of what the guys that we find in the business, there's definitely a case of, particularly here in Canada, because that's what I live and breathe every day, is all of the groups so far, I'm calling them up because I know what I've done in my career. And so, without putting a sort of lid on, or a ceiling on their capabilities because of what I've done, I just know that for this season right now, we can definitely offer them. There's a lot of growth that can happen in them as a person, as an operator. And even if you don't tie that to a revenue, status, there's so much benefit with having iron sharpening iron, or when the collaboration is definitely what our guys talk a lot about, to be able to, I mean, they're always talking to each other about different challenges, different projects, things that they've got, challenges wise, remedies and solutions. And so there is a little bit of that, cross culture mentoring where one guy might have an experience and that's going to help the next guy. So I think it's almost a dual process within the business, of what we do on a daily basis, whereby sure there's definitely somebody that's in a specific leadership role, but then there's also the knock-on effect with other people that are in and around the ecosystem where they just have a different perception on it. They've got a different skill set. They've got a different experience, to fall back on. And I just think we never, matter of fact, the further down the track I go, the more I realise how much I don't know. And
Exactly.
I think as these guys come through, our general contractors develop business. I look at Scotty. He was our first guy in Canada, and for him to take a business that was doing 50 and 60 grand a year and do 485 in the first year to almost 10x his business, that's just a whole lot of things coming together. But it's very much him and I were working close every day, and that was me being able to call him up. But he was a really good student as well. And I think that's important. You can find a good mentor, but if you're not going to listen to the advice or the instruction or sometimes the discipline that's applied, I know I've got to do that with a few of the hard heads that are in the group. They mean well, but they're very opinionated. But you've just got to sort of, I guess, guide. And that's, I guess, to be mentored is one thing, but to be the mentor, I'd almost say that that's more challenging. I don't know what you'd think, to be a mentor versus be mentored.
Yeah, and look, I guess that has been a big thing in my life is, if we look at mentorship and we look at leadership, I really, really think you have to learn to be a good follower before you can be a good leader. I just think that's so critical. It's about being teachable. And I remember, and I think I mentioned this to you the other day, Maxie, when we were throwing around ideas, for this podcast, is how I've seen people, I think I mentioned one chap to you who got fired for, being a delivery driver for Domino's.
Right.
And, God bless all the delivery drivers, but I don't think there's anything particularly hard about that. And I remember I was driving somewhere with this chap in the car, and he was talking about, how he thought the job should be done. Again, not sure how different getting in a car and delivering a pizza can be, but, it was quite clear to me that this guy wasn't a good follower. He wasn't a good student. And if you don't understand how to listen to someone else's advice and process that, you're in a losing position, unfortunately. And I guess, like we were talking about before, even as we get older, personally, I'm starting to take in points of view that when I was younger, I would have never considered, because you're young and you're brash and it's amazing how much we think we know between the ages of about 15 and 22.
Yeah, that's what I tell my kids. You should move out while you know everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess you're dead right, and I've always thought of that. You've got to learn how to take advice. You need to learn how to filter that advice. But you definitely, the lessons you learn. I think Zig Ziglar, someone's got a book called, Everything I Know at the Top, I Learned at the Bottom.
Yep.
Yeah. And so to me, it's like, how do I be a good follower first before I start trying to lead or mentor other people? Because it's definitely a skill to sit down, listen to someone, and, sometimes even a mentor, the advice they give, it might not be exactly right for you right that second.
Yeah, sure.
It could be across a time frame, but definitely 100% agree, Max. Look, how do I be a good follower? How do I just do what needs to be done? And again, that's something else I'm talking about is let's just do what needs to be done. And often as a follower, you're not doing pretty jobs, right? You're doing jobs that you don't really like, but you're doing them. And in doing those jobs, listening, it develops you on the inside to be a follower, and also how to be a leader, because you understand how the follower then responds.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like what you're talking about is that as you are being mentored and as you are being that follower, you're actually learning how to be a mentor.
Definitely.
Because I think when my background being as a carpentry apprentice, you learned how to be the tradesperson off of another tradesperson. And then when you went through your time, then obviously you could turn around and bring others through. That's what we did. So I think you're right. And I think as it relates to business, I think you could, at a point for me, being in the position I'm in, I'm doing both now. So I'm following the lead of somebody, and I'm also responsible to lead others through. So
yes,
it's a definitely, you get to a point where you transition from just being that follower or that mentoree, if you like, and you then potentially move into a dual role. And I think, for me, that will be the way it will be forever. I think,
yeah,
I'll never move out of a position where I quit learning off somebody or something. And I'm sure, as long as I'm a part of this business and probably outside this business, there is a level of mentoring that goes on at some level, in some respects. So
yeah,
I guess the reason, some of our audience might be sitting there and just saying, well, I still don't understand the context around what difference it could make on the business. Now, there's a saying, what you don't know, you don't know. And so I guess unless you've really drilled down on this concept, you don't understand the power of the arrangement or the power of the relationship. So I guess it's sort of what we're putting out there is information around a subject of mentoring, but I guess what we're throwing down is a little bit of a challenge to our viewers and our audience, and not so much that, because of that, you need to, get with Smith & Sons, but wherever you are, whatever you're doing as a general contractor, you need to find somewhere because I think success lies outside your comfort zone. So
100%.
if that's the case, then when you get uncomfortable because you're out there, because you now know that that's where my success lies, all of a sudden you're in uncommon territory, you're in uncertain terms, you lack the confidence, and I'm telling you, what most of us need is not a hand out, but a hand up. And I think that's what Smith & Sons will do to our general contractors. So that's the concept. If you're sitting out there and as a single operator, I think that's where the B&I groups come in, where you can start to network. Chamber of Commerce is a place you may find connection, but the challenge is to find that connection. Some people, like I've talked about in previous shows, there's three ways they're going to build a business. It's either trial and terror, where like you said when we started out, you can do it all yourself, you can learn it all yourself. It's just going to take you a quarter of a century to figure out.
Exactly.
Or you can go and get a coach and a consultant who can give you some insight, but there is a high level of disconnect because unlike the Smith & Sons model, the consultant is not giving you their brand. So essentially there's no skin in the game. And ironically, I chatted to one of our guys, I chatted to Alex, and he had a coach for 2 or 3 months, but he said after that, it was almost like it was, it just became irrelevant because of the growth that he'd experienced, and he was tapped out. So,
Yes.
We are, and then the third option is obviously the franchising, option, which is something that we do fairly well, but it's very much an unknown quantity in this country. But at some level, you've got to find, when you do get out of your comfort zone, then you've got to be able to say, okay, so what am I going to latch onto that's going to help me go to the next level? And all too often we hear stories of guys that just do $250,000 a year, every year in, year out, and there's nothing wrong with that if you're happy. But if you're doing that year in, year out, and you're not happy and you haven't got an answer, then I would almost say that you haven't got out of your comfort zone. You've just tried to trade inside your comfort zone, negotiate the price of success, and wondered why it's not happening. And so it's now mentoring is very much connected to a next level of success for you and your business.
Yeah, and I think you're dead right, Max. And again, I keep preaching about Smith & Sons because
It's what we do. So we
I,
are.
I do it, and I get these, if you go to the YouTube channel, you can see all those testimonials, Australia, New Zealand, Canada,
Yeah.
and just what we do for contractors and builders. But I think, the difference with Smith & Sons is, a good mentor, as we know, they're going to push you outside your comfort zone. 100%.
Absolutely. That's there. Yep.
But what I see is, you can get, excuse me, you can get, that phone never stops ringing in this job. What I see often with coaches and mentors is that they will push you out of that comfort zone. But then what happens when you jump? Who catches you? So it's like you're standing at the edge of a bungee, the big bungee jumps where you jump off a cliff. And, a consultant or coach who's not hasn't got that relationship like we do.
Yep.
For example, what the guys in Canada and the guys have here is that once you push, okay, who's there to catch?
Yeah.
And that's what I see with Smith & Sons is because we are directly linked to the guys, if we push them, we're also there to catch them as a group.
Yeah. There's a safety net for sure.
There's just safety net. So
Yeah.
I think that is the big thing about Smith & Sons and mentoring is, wherever you want to choose that mentor, if that's within the bounds of what Smith and Sons offers, like their leadership, yourself, it means that you will nudge, push, but you're also there to catch them.
Yeah.
Where, like you mentioned before, if you're choosing an external mentor, whatever, often it's like, well, how do they catch you? They don't actually have that capability. And I was thinking before, that's what a good mentor does. They take you out of their comfort zone. They give you not conflicting advice, but they're there to really open up your mind to new patterns of thought and new ways to thinking about things.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I love about Smithies is that, where there's a lot of guys in the group, there can be all these different opinions that you can actually take on board and just expand your mind. But what I love again about the whole mentoring thing is you expand your mind, but as part of Smith and Sons, you can bounce that off so many other people that you've just got an incredible vehicle for great feedback that really, really works. And I guess that's where, again, I love the model in Smith and Sons because you've got all these guys, many that have been where, a young franchisee starts up with us. We've got across the group 20, 30 or 40 people who've actually walked in those steps already.
Yeah.
Where, you can get a consultant or a coach from somewhere else and they really haven't been there. That's the big thing that I find.
Yeah, I was about to say, what we're not just offering the coaching consultant services across the board, and one person's a builder and the other person's a butcher, and there's he's giving very generic business advice.
Yeah.
What we've done is under the franchise business model, we've really created that niche whereby we can continue to grow because we are focused centrally on developing building companies to turn great builders into great business people. And so, going back to Scotty, it's he was a guy who, the way I mentor him today is different to the way that we started to mentor him on the first time he got into business. Because
definitely.
And we can literally see his growth across several different metric levels, whether it's, revenue, his ability to make sales, his close, like his bid to win ratios and things like that. His ability to even write emails, there's so much that he has gleaned from just the association. And let's face it, you become like the people you associate with. And that's why I think if you're a builder out there and you're by yourself and you're sort of just trying to figure things out using the trial and terror method, that's a long, hard road. And you really, like I tell you what, Alex has a good saying. He says, I would rather have half of a watermelon than all of a grape. And that was you like that? That was the way that he really sort of understood the opportunity that is, he didn't look about what he was losing. He just looked about what he was getting and the size of that. And, Alex he's a goer, he really enjoys the challenge of building a company, not just knocking nails into wood. And so he's definitely in that, caterpillar to butterfly process whereby the pressure's on him and he really wants to sort of bring in human resources. He knows he's got the marketing handled. His ability to sell is outstanding, and he's just trying to put that human resource thing together, and really that's going to unlock a lot of his business. But what all the guys love is just to pick the phone up and I guess talk to me at the moment and chat about their challenges and what they're facing. And more often than not, they've got it in their head, and when they hear themselves say it and we throw it around a little bit, they just get it. And so it's a powerful moment where they just go, okay, now I know what I've got to do. And I'll tell you what I've seen both in a couple of the guys, maybe, a good percentage of the guys is the overcoming of fear. Now, when you talked about jumping off of that ledge, a lot of the times people will say, well, when I can see the net, I'll jump. But what I understand is that, you've got to jump first and then the net will appear. I think a guy by the name of Les Brown often said that. And so, I think there's an element of as much as we've got to get outside of our comfort zone, obviously that then entails we've got to take a risk because there is an unknown quantity. And so I think what that does is it develops resilience in the individual as well. Because now they're not controlled by fear. And a lot of that time it was the belief that I had in Scotty that I knew that he could build a business. He was a good salt of the earth, blue collar dude, and he had really good characteristics. but it was my confidence in him as a mentor that encouraged him that he could do more. He could do something better. So it was the confidence I had in him that then enabled him to be able to take that step outside of his comfort zone. And I think when you get comfortable living outside of your comfort zone, I think therein lies quite a catch-22, isn't it? And so for me, for my personal journey of moving countries, I mean, when the guys start complaining about or they're concerned about certain fears and things, I mean, you try dragging your family, wife and 6 kids in 19 suitcases halfway around the world for no business agenda at that time. It was purely a family decision. That epitomizes what it takes to be successful, I think, in most sectors. And so,
100%,
getting
100%.
outside the comfort zone and then being, feeling who said feel the fear and do it anyway? Was that a Nike thing? Was that a Nike slogan? Feel the fear and do it anyway. Cam's nodding. He's actually writing a book at the same time that we're doing these podcasts because he thinks there's a book of sayings that we should be writing. But you feel the fear and do it anyway. But if you can feel the fear and get comfortable outside your comfort zone and be happy leaping before the net appears, I think you can actually experience some fairly exponential growth in your business, because I'm telling you that I think a lot of the time it's the universal law of vacuum. The universe will make a way, and this is where we could jump from mentoring right now, Lee, back into mindset.
100%.
Because that mindset and then, embracing the whole change thing, I think that's really, they're all tied together as far as ultimate business success is concerned. But as it relates to mentoring, I think that whole leap, and the net will appear, getting outside your comfort zone and then knowing that you're probably not going to do that. You kind of need a push. You need some encouragement. You need someone else to believe in you. And I think, you need to get that from someone if you're sitting out there. That's what I would say.
100%, Maxie. And I think that is a lot of what we do, for young contractors and builders is, they are currently on site working for a boss, standing frames or doing whatever.
Yeah.
And, we come and see them, and it's exactly what we do. We see the potential. And I know that I've sat, although my role hasn't been directly, franchise recruitment related, I know I've had quite a few meetings with the potential franchisees, and we'll sit across from a guy and say, that guy is a smithy, because there's something about him. And and it's because I think you're in the busyness of life and running a business that you often don't see your own potential. And that's what it's about, is when we actually recognize someone's potential, and it's like the young contractors are like, wow, these guys actually believe in me. Well, I should believe in myself. So that's a massive part of it. As a mentor, is just saying, look, I believe in you, and, I think you can do it. So, that's a huge part. And like you were saying before, we can quickly move into mindset, because that's, as a mentor, your job is to help them change their mindset. And I was just thinking about that on the way this morning, because I wasn't sure what we were going to talk about, and we will talk about later. But one thing I've been enjoying lately is with my young fella, he's 12 years old. He's getting into the Rocky movies, Rocky Balboa. And I have just been watching them with a new perspective. When you're his age at 12 or 13, you just want to see the fights. But as an old fella, I'm starting to look for different things. And in there, it's all about that mind game. It's everything is in the mind. You or I, anyone could be a Rocky Balboa, but it's all in our mind. So we'll leave that for another time. But, as a mentor, that is one of the final things, is talking about getting your mindset changed. 100%.
Yeah, mate. So I'll have to go home and watch some Rocky Balboa, because, but you're right. There's definitely some business fundamentals that you can take away from those types of programs, for sure. I mean, a lot of stuff. I mean, I certainly don't endorse what some of the criminal underworld do, but there are some high level entrepreneurs in those guys. But the methods of enforcement probably aren't quite up to what we would recommend. But I get it. There's definitely principles that are in there, personal stuff that you can take away and, implement those sort of fundamentals in your business. So, man, I think we've had a good time. And you got anything else to add? Is there anything else you want to round out on? Tell a fishing story maybe? No.
Fishing story about mentorship. Oh,
No.
no, but I just, we just can't underestimate the importance of having someone there who's been there before, because again, you can try and do it yourself, but for you, for your family, if you want to exponentially grow and succeed, you've just got to have someone or some mechanism in place for that support and leadership.
Great way to finish off. Well, thanks, Lee. We appreciate you being in the room, so to speak. I love it. It's certainly been, we'll do more of this for sure. But for all the Business for Builders audience, if you like what you heard and, it meant something to you, give us a thumbs up, maybe hit the subscribe button to keep an eye on the channel just for some more content. And certainly share it if you, if you're that way inclined, if you know someone that can use it. And be sure to maybe comment below. Or you could send me an email, max@businessforbuilders.ca, and I'll get back to you myself. So I'd love to hear your questions. But other than that, all the best, and we'll talk again soon.